Those were the last words she said before turning her back on me forever. I was 12. Too young to understand the weight of what had just happened, but old enough to feel the cold emptiness settle in my chest. My own mother, my flesh and blood, cast me aside like a stray dog. She always called me rebellious, too wild for my own good. I didn't bow to tradition, didn't follow the family rules. My older brother, Daniel, was the golden child, the obedient one, the heir. And me? I was the embarrassment, the storm they couldn't control. When she slammed the door in my face, I had nothing but the clothes on my back and a heart full of fury. No money. No home. No family. But I had something else. A fire. A defiance that whispered, "I'll make them regret this." I clawed my way through life, fighting for every inch of success. I slept on park benches, took odd jobs, learned how to survive in a world that didn't care if I lived or died. But I wasn't just surviving, I was learning. Watching. Studying the people who had what I didn't. And then, one day, everything changed. I built something. From nothing. An empire, a business that shook the industry. My name, once spit out in disgust by my own family, became a symbol of power. Wealth. Influence. But just as I thought I had outrun my past, they came back. After all these years. Smiling. Pretending. Acting as if they hadn't abandoned me when I needed them most. And they didn't come empty-handed. No, they had a request. A demand, even. They wanted a piece of what I built. And they sent my brother to take it. I still remember the night I was cast out. The way the rain soaked through my thin sweater, the way my stomach clenched from hunger hours later, sitting alone under a flickering streetlight. But the worst part wasn't the cold or the fear. It was knowing that no one was coming for me. At 12, I learned the hard way that love was conditional. That family loyalty only went as far as obedience. I wasn't obedient. I wasn't the son my mother wanted. And so, she erased me. The first few months were hell. I slept wherever I could, stole food when I had to, took beatings from older kids who saw me as easy prey. But I adapted. I learned fast. I figured out that the world was built by men who took risks, who fought harder than the rest. By 16, I had my first real job, flipping burgers at a greasy diner. By 20, I had worked my way into a management position at a failing retail store. That was my first taste of business, of seeing how systems worked, how money moved, how decisions made in boardrooms affected the people at the bottom. By 25, I had my first startup. It failed. So did the second one. The third nearly ruined me. But the fourth? That one changed everything. I built an empire from the ground up. I didn't just climb the corporate ladder, I broke it and built my own. My name became synonymous with power. I turned my pain into drive, my rage into success. And now, after all these years, after all their silence, my family suddenly wanted back in. Daniel sat across from me in my office, looking every bit the polished golden boy he had always been. Slick suit, rehearsed charm, that same smug confidence that had always grated on me. "We should talk," he said smoothly, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. I didn't say a word. I just stared. "Come on, don't look at me like that," he continued. "This is business. No hard feelings." Hard feelings? My own mother abandoned me, and now he wanted to sit in my office and talk like we were equals? I folded my hands together. "Get to the point." He smirked. "Mom wants to make things right. She knows she made mistakes." I almost laughed. The audacity. The nerve. "But more importantly," he continued, "we think it would be in everyone's best interest if you allowed us to buy a controlling stake in your company. Family should stick together, don't you think?" I leaned forward, my voice deadly calm. "You mean you want me to hand over what I built?" "Not hand over," Daniel corrected, still smiling. "Just share." I exhaled slowly, feeling the years of pain and anger simmer beneath the surface. I had spent my life proving that I didn't need them. That I would never need them. And now they had come crawling back. But if they thought I would roll over like the obedient son they once tried to mold me into, they had another thing coming. I let the silence stretch between us, watching Daniel's confident smirk. He thought this was a negotiation. That I would hesitate, that some buried part of me still craved their approval. He was wrong. You expect me to believe this is about family? I said, voice even. Where was this sense of loyalty when I was starving in the streets? Where was Mom's love when she turned her back on me? Daniel sighed, shaking his head like I was being unreasonable. Look, I get it. You're still holding on to old wounds. But we're giving you a chance to. I slammed my hand on the desk. A chance? You think I need a chance? Daniel flinched. Just for a second. But I saw it. I stood up, towering over him. I built this from nothing while you sat in your cushy life, playing the good son. And now, because Mom finally sees that I'm more successful than you, she wants back in? She sent you here to take what she threw away? His jaw tightened. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like, I challenged. He hesitated. I could see the gears turning, the carefully crafted words forming. But I knew him too well. He wasn't here to reconnect. He was here because my success threatened the family's legacy. Finally, he dropped the act. Fine, he admitted. Mom wants the company because she knows you'll never willingly be part of the family again. She wants to make sure we control your legacy before someone else does. There it was. The truth. I laughed. A cold, sharp sound. So that's what this is about. Control. Not forgiveness. Not making things right. Just greed. Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. Come on, man. You have more than enough. Let's not turn this into a war. I leaned in, voice low and firm. Oh, Daniel. You have no idea. It was a war the moment she turned her back on me. His eyes darkened. You really want to do this? I smiled. I live for this. He stood up, straightening his tie. Mom warned me you'd be difficult. But we will get what we want. One way or another. I let him walk to the door before speaking again. Tell her she should have chosen the right son the first time. He hesitated, just for a second. Then he left. I exhaled slowly, my hands clenching into fists. They thought they could waltz in and take what I bled for. That I would just give it to them. They had no idea who they were messing with. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I wasn't going to let them win. They thought they could walk into my empire, take a piece of it, and leave me powerless. They underestimated me. The same way they always had. But this time, I wasn't the lost kid begging for scraps. I was the one holding all the cards. I spent the next few days digging. If my family wanted to play dirty, I was more than happy to return the favor. I had resources now, connections that stretched across industries, investigators who could find skeletons buried 6 feet deep. And what I found? It was almost too easy. My mother had been quietly draining the family's wealth for years, investing in failed ventures, propping up Daniel's pathetic attempts at running a business. She had been so desperate to keep him on top that she had sunk herself into a financial hole so deep she couldn't climb out of it. And now, with their fortune dwindling, they had come to me, the son they abandoned, expecting a bailout. Unbelievable. I set my plan in motion. First, I had my team quietly acquire key assets tied to my family's holdings, shares in their companies, real estate, anything that held value. Then, I called in a few favors from friends in the media. By the time I was done, whispers of financial instability were spreading. Investors were getting nervous. The market was losing confidence in the family name. And then, I delivered the final blow. A hostile takeover. By the time Daniel and my mother realized what was happening, it was too late. I had bought out controlling stakes in their remaining businesses, leveraged their debts against them, and left them with nothing. The family that once cast me out was now at my mercy. And I made sure they knew it. The night before the deal was finalized, Daniel stormed into my office, his face red with rage. "You bastard! You planned this from the start." I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. "You came to me, remember? You wanted a piece of my empire. I just took a piece of yours instead." His hands clenched into fists. "You ruined us." I tilted my head. "No, Daniel. Mom ruined you when she put all her faith in the wrong son." His face twisted in anger, but behind it, I saw something else. Defeat. He knew I had one. I stood up, walking around my desk until I was standing right in front of him. "You wanted war. This is what war looks like. And the best part? I didn't even have to break a sweat." He didn't say another word. Just turned and left, slamming the door behind him. I exhaled slowly, the weight of my victory settling in. It should have felt good. But why did it feel so empty? The deal was done. The empire that once belonged to my family was now mine. The same woman who had cast me aside now had nothing. The golden son, Daniel, was left with no power, no influence, just the bitter taste of defeat. I should have felt victorious. Instead, there was only silence. That's when the call came. I stared at the name flashing on my phone. Mother. For a long time, I didn't move. She hadn't called me in over 20 years. Not when I was starving. Not when I was struggling to survive. Not when I had built everything from the ground up. But now that I had taken everything from her, she finally reached out. I answered. "Speak." For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then, a sigh. "So, this is what it's come to." Her voice was quieter than I remembered. "Older. You made it come to this," I replied coldly. "You thought I was worthless, so you threw me away. Now, you expect sympathy because I proved you wrong?" She let out a tired chuckle. "You always were stubborn." I clenched my jaw. "Is that what you tell yourself? That I was difficult? That I deserved to be abandoned?" Another pause. Then, softer, I did what I thought was right at the time. I laughed bitterly. "Right? You left me to die. I gave you a choice," she said, her voice still calm. "Obey, or leave. You made your choice." My hand tightened around the phone. "I was a child. You were my mother." She sighed. "And look at you now. You survived. You became something greater than I ever imagined. You don't get to take credit for that." She didn't argue. For a moment, neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. Then, finally, she said, "So, what now? Will you watch us burn? Will you let the world see the great matriarch fall?" I exhaled slowly, thinking about everything. The revenge. The war. The emptiness that followed. I had one. I had taken everything from them. But standing at the top, looking down at the ruins, I realized something. Winning didn't feel like I thought it would. I closed my eyes. Then, I spoke. "I'm not going to destroy you." She let out a soft, humorless laugh. "Mercy?" I shook my head. "No. I just don't care anymore." For the first time, I heard something in her voice I never expected. Defeat. So, this is how it ends? I thought about it. About the years of pain, the anger, the drive that had fueled me for so long. And I realized. I was done. "This ended years ago," I said. "You were just too blind to see it." I hung up. For the first time in my life, I was free. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of my office, watching the city I had conquered. The skyline stretched endlessly before me, a testament to everything I had built. everything I had earned. And yet, for the first time, I felt weightless. For years, my drive had been fueled by anger, by the need to prove them wrong. Every deal, every dollar, every victory, it had all been leading to this moment. And now that I had one, I realized something. I didn't need their approval. I never did. The phone on my desk buzzed. A message from my assistant. Daniel resigned from the last remaining board position. It's over. I exhaled. It was done. My family, once so powerful, so untouchable, had crumbled under their own arrogance. But I didn't feel joy. I thought revenge would taste sweeter, that watching them fall would fill the hole they left in me. But it didn't. Because the truth was, I had already moved on. I had built something greater than them, something they could never take from me. And they? They were relics of a past I no longer cared about. A knock on the door. My assistant peeked in. Your next meeting is ready, sir. I turned away from the window. Let's go. Because the past was done. And the future? That still belonged to me.